What is going on, guys? It's David from AquaOtter, and welcome back to another One Piece chapter review. This week we're talking about chapter 1017, The Order. So, pretty good chapter this week. A lot happens, but like it's really in like a short amount of time span. Like, really the things that happen are huge, but like there's only around like 5 really major things that happen in this chapter that need to be talked about. But the things that need to be talked about, like I said, pretty big. So before we hop into the chapter review, I just want to take this moment to remind you all at the beginning of the video that if you are not subscribed to the channel, go ahead and click the subscribe button and click the bell so that you get notified anytime I upload a new video. Also, I want to remind everyone that down in the description is the link to all of my social media and stuff. Please at least go follow me on Twitter because I post there a lot whenever I have announcements and stuff. So if you want to stay informed, make sure you're subscribed and make sure you're following me on Twitter. And yeah, that's the best way to keep up to date with stuff that's going on with the channel. So yeah, with that being said, we're going to get right into the chapter review. And so, like I said, a lot happens this chapter, but we're going to start with one of the major things that happens, which is that Tama, as the chapter is aptly named, Tama finally does give the order. And so while all of this is happening in the build up to her giving the order that we built up to in the last chapter, we do actually get to check in a little bit all around Onigashima. We get to see Jinbei and Who's Who, and Frankie and Sasuke, and actually Jack versus Inuarashi. And one of the main things that's happening during all of these little check-ins is that it's being driven home that the numbers are a little overwhelming and that something needs to happen. And this is something that was kind of built up in the last chapter as well, with going back to the CP0 guys and still talking about how, even though the tides have turned a little bit in favor of the Alliance, we definitely, they definitely still have a numbers advantage there. But so, this is kind of hammered home, and finally, of course, this is all just a build-up to Tama eventually giving the orders, which is that all of the gifters that have eaten her Kibidango, they need to now fight on the side of the Alliance. And immediately, everyone starts changing. We get to see Briscola, and we actually check in with a lot of the gifters that have been kind of established throughout this arc. So we get to see Speed again, and Briscola, and Daifugo, Poker, who is the guy who is waiting at the steps to the 5th floor for Luffy. He ends up changing sides and is holding off Who's kind of gang of cat gifters, so that, it becomes a fair fight. And we get to see Hamlet, the giraffe guy. So yeah, really good to like check in with all these. And also now the tide has, of course, completely turned. So this is really good with the gifters finally now changing sides. And what this is going to lead up to is that the tide of the battle is majorly going to shift. And I believe that what is going to happen is that something is going to happen that's going to level the playing field again in the favor of the Beast Pirates, because I don't think that we are done with the swerves. And I know that a lot of people have been theorizing that other people are going to show up to help with this raid, like whether that be the Revolutionary Army or Blackbeard's crew or Shanks's crew or the Grand Fleet. People have been theorizing that someone is going to show up to Wano, and I don't know if I am on board with that. But if that is the case, which seems to be the general consensus within the community, that something is going to happen, that someone is going to show up. And I do think that some of the theories that are out there do hold credence. The one that I lean personally towards the most is that the Revolutionary Army will show up, because they do kind of have stake in Wano. But if that is going to happen and we're going to have this outside force come in, what needs to happen first is that the tides need to kind of shift back a little bit. And I don't know exactly how we're going to do that, specifically because right now it kind of seems way more even than it was, with all of the gifters now changing. Because the gifters, I mean, we had some of the pleasures and the waiters that had swapped sides, but the gifters actually have power. Not that there aren't like strong gifters or strong, but they're all essentially fodder. But in the grand scheme of things, you put a gifter up against a pleasure or a waiter, they're much more useful to have on your side. So I don't think, unless something changes pretty soon, I don't think anyone else is going to show up. So yeah, but moving right along, we kind of have this weird through line with the order segment where, as Tama is trying to give the orders, Queen is kind of like, who's this little kid? Because remember, she's giving the orders, overlooking the performance floor, which is where a lot of the fights are taking place right now. Specifically, that's where like Marco and King are fighting, and that's where Sanji is right now versus Queen. And so Queen has been like noticing, like through this whole thing, like, what is this little girl doing? And then after the orders are given, Queen pretty much realizes like, oh, okay, so it's that girl. This girl did this, so what I have to do is I have to take care of the girl. And Queen starts to charge up his mouth laser and never actually gets the chance to fire it off at Tama because Sanji comes in, and once again, Sanji just doing what Sanji does the best, which is being a savior character, comes in with the Collier strike and kind of brings Queen's attention back to him. So we do get to focus on this whole like Queen Sanji fight for a little bit, but there are two major things that happen during this fight, which is that, or not in the fight, but in the lead up to the fight. The first is that Sanji says something to Queen about Judge, because, Queen's been calling Sanji like Judge's brat and all this kind of stuff. And so Sanji mentions that group that in Whole Cake Island we found out that Judge and Vegapunk had worked together in this like kind of rogue science group. And we get a name finally for the group. The group is called Mads. And so I want to talk about Mads, but I want to talk about the other thing that happens here, because I feel like I have less to say on the other thing than I do about Mads. So I'm going to talk about Queen's hybrid form, which right after he mentions this group, Mads, his hybrid form is revealed. And it looks a little weird, but I don't know what I expected. I mean, with the Brachiosaur having the long neck, I guess I expected it to not look so stocky, but it does look pretty intimidating. I really like the colored pages of it I've been seeing going around Twitter, the colored version of Queen's hybrid form. And one of the things about Queen's hybrid form that I think is going to make him extra dangerous and is going to kind of move us to where we're going to go with this whole Sanji fight, and how Queen's connection to the Vinsmokes and Sanji needing to kind of accept that he's a Vinsmoke, especially now because his he needs to kind of accept more the raid suit power if he's going to end up needing, triumphing over Queen. But I think that the most dangerous thing about Queen's hybrid form is the fact that Queen is a cyborg, and there's a lot of built-in, extra stuff that you have to deal with on top of the fact that the hybrid form is making Queen much stronger. The hybrid form itself, his hair is kind of a mechanized arm, his tail's a mechanized arm, he's got his big robot arm and a sword. So, yeah, looks intimidating. But now, let's talk about Mads, because, there's an obvious parallel here to emotion. There's Mads, and then we have sad when it comes to the ingredients that are used to make these smiles. So there's some kind of emotion theme here. And there's one thing that I've been thinking about in terms of smiles, and I haven't really had a chance to kind of talk about it in any other videos, because it's not really something that's big enough for me to talk about in its own dedicated video. But so something that's very important that we know about throughout the entire series is smiles, because we know that a lot of very prominent figures in the series have died with smiles on their faces. Roger died with a smile on his face. Ace died with a smile on his face. Luffy almost died with a smile on his face. Odin died with a smile on his face. And so there's this weird connection to smiles, and smiles are important within the series. I mean, we have one of the weird mysteries we have about the Void Sentry in the world is this Joy Boy, and we've had this whole through line with Joy Boy. So there's clearly something about emotions that are going to end up being important, and I think that Oda is kind of slightly foreshadowing that. So now when it comes to Mads, this kind of opens up, I was not around making videos when the initial science group was revealed, so I've been trying to think about who could possibly be in Mads, who else could end up being revealed, and who we might get info dumps about Mads from. And I definitely think we're going to get a info dump about Mads in some sort of flashback for Queen, establishing the connection further between Queen and Judge. And I don't know how long that flashback's going to be, because I still feel like Oda is saving Vegapunk for like a big reveal down the line. But so we already know that Vegapunk, Judge, and Queen were all a part of this group. I don't know if Caesar was a part of the group. I really, really don't think that Caesar was a part of the group. But one person I can definitely see having been a part of Mads is Lindbergh, who is the Mink revolutionary officer. Just because his whole thing, it doesn't seem like he actually has a devil fruit. It just seems like he is technologically advanced. So I think it would make sense for him to have been a member of Mads. And I don't know, like, thinking back on all the people, like, I don't think that we have anyone really else established within the verse that could have been a part of this group besides him. And I think that if he does end up being a member of Mads, that would lend credence. There's actually two things that happen in this chapter, and we haven't talked about the second thing yet, but we'll get there. There are two things in this chapter that actually lend credence to the Revolutionary Army showing up if there is a Lindbergh connection, which we could have a Lindbergh connection through Mads, and we could have a Lindbergh connection through this next thing. And so I guess we'll talk about the next thing now, because right as the hybrid form is revealed, we have this kind of almost official start to the fight, where Sanji is like, all right, I'm going to take him down now. Like, hey, Chopper, are you good? Are you all right? And we actually get to see the side effects of the enhanced Rumble Ball, which puts Chopper in his kind of Gear 3rd chibi form. They clearly needed some more Chopper merchandise, because we have this new mode called, I think the official translation is Baby Geezer mode, where Chopper is very, very tiny, much tinier than before, but also he's like an old man, and he like speaks like an old man. I don't think this is really hitting like it should in the manga, because I think this is something we're going to have to see colorized. So I definitely think this is going to be a better form in the anime than it is here. Like, maybe he has gray fur or whatever, but he's talking to Dr. Miyagi, and he mentions this kind of miracle medicine that the Minks have. And so essentially what this is the Minks have a sensu bean, and they are considering giving this miracle medicine to Zoro. And whatever this miracle medicine is, basically what happens is it will completely heal up the wounds and allow him to fight. But after the medicine wears off, so kind of like, it's not a permanent solution. It's kind of like taking an ibuprofen for a headache. Like, it helps, but it's temporary. So after the medicine wears off, the person who took the medicine ends up feeling double the amount of pain that they would have felt otherwise. So Zoro basically says, like, just give it to me. So he's going to be getting this sensu bean. So I've seen a lot of people kind of upset about this. I mean, everyone knew that Zoro was going to get back in this fight. He definitely was not out. Like, at any point was it ever a thing where he was going to be out. But do I think that this is a little bit of a, for lack of a better term, do I think this is a little ass-pulley? Maybe a little bit, but also I don't really care, because, so here's the thing, right? A lot of people are saying that it's like cheap, because, oh, like, it's basically like a sensu bean, so all of the, once this is introduced, like, all the stakes are going to go away, because everyone can just take this medicine. But I don't know how much this is going to be used going forward. And it's not like a Deus Ex Machina where everything is going to be fine. Zoro is still incredibly, incredibly injured from his time on the roof. And that's not going to change. He's going to end up staying injured, but he's going to be able to fight. And that's kind of what he says, like, it doesn't matter as long as I can fight right now. So, like, Zoro's kind of getting his Marineford Luffy moment where he, Luffy was like, Ivankov, inject me with the hormones, I need to keep fighting. But Zoro's going to be in a bad way when this is done. And a lot of people are saying we're going to get Nothing Happened 2.0. I think that might happen, but, like, Zoro, I feel like this is good for Zoro's character. Like, bring him back, let him fight King, because I believe that Zoro is going to fight King. Let him fight King, and then let him be out of action. Let him be out of action for a while, because what happens if we take Zoro out of action? Other people get a chance to shine. And I am all for that. What if Zoro is completely out of action for the next arc because he's still dealing with his injuries from fighting Kaido and Big Mom up on the roof? If Zoro's out of action, that opens the door to other people possibly getting fights in the next arc, which I am all for. So, yeah, and this is the other thing that is a possible connection to Lindbergh, because Lindbergh is a mink. The minks have this miracle medicine. It could be confirmed or established that Lindbergh made this medicine, which would once again add credence to the Revolutionary Army possibly showing up to Wano, because we're getting these little drops and possible connections to that character. But yeah, so the big thing now about this chapter. So before we get into the big thing, two small things that are established during this, which I skipped over. They actually happened earlier. One, Luffy is in the polar tang, so that's established. He's out of the water. And two, it's revealed that Momonosuke is okay. So we don't know where Momonosuke is, but it's revealed that him and Shinobu are okay. They survived the fall. But yeah. So now the big thing, the big through line through this chapter, and I wanted to kind of cover the events that happened sort of chronologically, but I think this is the one I'm going to be spending the most amount of time talking about. So we have this whole through line. I mentioned earlier that we got to see the Jinbei versus Who's Who fight. And the rest of this chapter is the Jinbei versus Who's Who fight. It's kind of like a little bit of a fight, a little bit of everything else. But so, everything that happens with the orders. Who's Who basically realizes that like all these gifters are now turning, that he's kind of, it's going to be more of a one-on-one fight now. So he has this long sword, and he basically pulls out the sword and is like, time to get serious. But the sword's not a sword. It's a tiny little dagger. And so he takes the sword and he starts using it in a way that is very similar to him using Shigan. Where he uses this attack called Blade Pistol. He basically uses this tiny little dagger and is like pew 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 and launches all of these little dagger shots at Jinbei. And so Jinbei counters that and with his own attack. And this is where we get reveals. The only reason that you put a character in a mask is to have them take it off. And eventually, Who's Who's mask is going to come off. But we're starting to get some of that mask taking off. Because as Jinbei counters with his attack, Who's Who uses a Soru. And then he uses a Rankyaku. And Jinbei says, I see, Tekkai, right? So Who's Who is revealed to be a rogue agent of CP9. Which is super, super interesting, because if we go back to the panel where Drake is found out to be a spy working for the government, who discovered that he was a spy? Who's Who? So it makes sense, because game recognizes game. The spy recognized the spy. And now it is established, right? So Jinbei talks about having heard this story about a rogue CP9 agent who was imprisoned, escaped from prison. And it is confirmed there was that whole thing where Who's Who was saying, that he had some connection to Jinbei. That's just because he knew him when he was a warlord. They never actually officially met. But there's this story about a rogue CP9 agent who ended up being put in jail, escaped from jail, and so that rogue agent is Who's Who. And so Who's Who is talking basically and saying that, back then he was like a really bright prospect. He was basically on par with Rob Lucci, which I think is really cool, because Lucci, he has the cat fruit model leopard, and Who's Who has basically like the ancient cat fruit model saber-toothed tiger. And so we get the reveal of Who's Who's hybrid form, which also looks really cool. Looks very similar to Lucci when he's in his big cat form before he uses the life return and turns into that slim version of it. And he launches out he does a Shigan variant with his fangs, where he like launches out his fangs in like a Shigan attack. And then he starts to tell this story of his life. And he basically says that everything was going fine for him. He was a bright prospect, but 12 years ago, something happened that destroyed his entire life. And even though he is happy now where he's at, he ended up escaping from prison, he ended up becoming a headliner for Kaido, and he's pretty happy where he's at in his life, he has this bitter taste in his mouth because of a failure that happened. And Jinbei goes, well, that has nothing to do with me. And he says, yeah, it does actually. Because what did you say? You said that you are the helmsman of the Straw Hat Pirates. And it is then revealed that Who's Who was thrown into jail because 12 years ago, he failed to guard the Gum Gum fruit, the Gumu Gumu no Mi. And it was stolen by Shanks, and it was such a colossal failure that he was thrown into jail. And so he holds this grudge against the Straw Hat Pirates because Luffy ate the Gum Gum fruit. So that's where the chapter ends. And there's no break this week, which is awesome because I need more of this. But so we need to talk about this. And I know that last section was kind of a panel recap, but it's necessary because there was so much. So Jinbei is kind of getting his Enies Lobby fight, which means that Brook is the only person who needs to take down a Cypher Pole agent. But I don't think that that's going to be like a qualifying thing for the Straw Hats anymore. Like, I don't think just because Jinbei's fighting a member of CP9 that means that like Brook's going to end up fighting a member of Cypher Pole. But oh god, so Who's Who being a Cypher Pole agent is interesting because we have Cypher Pole on Onigashima already, and so I wonder if they know, and I doubt that they do because I feel like when he was a Cypher Pole agent, he didn't wear the mask. And I feel like maybe he got his devil fruit through CP9, but also at the same time, I don't know. But he's also significantly older than most of the CP9 agents. So, like, maybe he did, which wouldn't make sense why they wouldn't know that it's him. But maybe they do know that it's him and they just can't touch him because he's working for Kaido. I don't know, but the important thing here is the Gum Gum fruit reveal. I don't think that it is as bad as some people think that it is. When I first read it, right, I was basically like, oh man, people are going to be real upset about this. And I feel like some people are, right? But I also feel like the majority of people, at least that I've spoken to, are okay with it. And I think that the reason that they're okay with it is because I know that there has been this very popular theory, and it has existed for years, like many years has this theory existed, that Roger had the fruit, had the Gum Gum fruit, and that, it was going to be revealed that Roger had the fruit, thus, further tying Luffy to Roger. But I don't think that that's going to end up being the case. Like, I really, really don't think that's the case. And I don't think that most people think that that's going to be the case. And I did think, like, maybe the fruit is important because it was, like, a fruit that Rocks had, but the timing wouldn't make sense for that. Like, why, the God Valley incident and supposedly Rocks disappearing off the face of the earth happened 39 years ago, which wouldn't make sense why they were just getting their hands on the Gum Gum fruit now. So I think the most likely explanation is that someone very important wanted the fruit. I don't think that this is going to be like a predestined thing. Like, this isn't going to go the path of Naruto or many other shonens where this is going to be like some kind of destined fruit that Luffy had. Because we got to remember, and I feel like a lot of people, their complaint with this reveal, anybody who actually isn't okay with the reveal, is that they want Luffy to not be this destined character that is being pushed forward by destiny. I feel like it's fine that Luffy is kind of fitting into this Joy Boy prophecy, but I don't think that it's like a destiny thing, like it wasn't Luffy's destiny to become this character because of XY factors, it's because he just happens to be the person who fits the bill best. And we got to remember that Oda himself basically said that he gave Luffy the Gum Gum fruit because he didn't want Luffy to be this overpowered character. Like, he didn't want him to have a power that was necessarily strong. He wanted to have this power that was only strong in the right hands, and that Luffy's ingenuity and creativity with the fruit is what makes it powerful. So I don't think it's going to be something like, oh, well, the previous Joy Boy had the Gum Gum fruit, and that's why the government wanted it. Nor do I think it's going to be something like, oh, well, Luffy's awakening gives him this crazy power like the immortal surgery. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think more than likely it's going to be because someone very, very important wanted the fruit. And I don't know why they would want the fruit. That's still up in the air. But basically, let's say like a celestial dragon really wanted to get their hands on the fruit, and because they had the fruit, the government, and they put who's who on it, he was assigned to guard it, and he failed. The celestial dragon was basically like, jail him. He failed, jail him. But yeah, I don't know. I really, really need the next chapter to delve further into this. This can't be something that's like dropped on us and then we have to wait. I don't need a storeroom silhouette or like the hybrid form silhouette. Like this is a reveal that needs to be revealed. But my main concern for this, right, is why Jinbei? You could say it's just because Jinbei happens to be the character fighting this character who has this tie to the fruit. But Oda does not do anything without a reason. And I'm kind of concerned why Jinbei is getting this information. I don't know what it means for his character. I kind of was getting a little bit of death flags, and God knows Jinbei has had enough death flags, and I would hate it if Jinbei died, but so many people are convinced that a Straw Hat is going to die before the end of the story. I'm not on that train, but this is making me a little worried for Jinbei. But yeah, so this chapter was amazing. Really, really good, genuinely. It was a mid-tier chapter, but like the last 8 pages made up for that. So it really doesn't matter. But yeah, so what do I think is going to happen? I know the spoilers are out right now. At the time of recording, I'm recording this video later than I wanted to. The spoilers are already out there for chapter 1018, and I have not seen them, but I did see one thing about them, and I'm not gonna talk about it here because for anyone who watches this video and doesn't want to stay spoiler free and wants to stay spoiler free, I'm not gonna mention what it is. I did see one thing, but I'm not gonna include that in my predictions at all because it wasn't anything that I could have possibly predicted happened. But it is something I'm gonna talk about, so keep an eye out for my 1018 video. But yeah, so I think that we are gonna get the exposition drop. I don't think we're moving away from this. I think we're going to learn this information, and then something dramatic is going to happen, and then that's going to be the end of the act. Because I really think that Act 3 is ending. And I don't know if we're going to end up being, like, if Act 3 doesn't end after this next chapter, I'm just going to stop trying to predict it, because I really don't care at this point about the act structures anymore. It's just, I kind of want people to be right about the triangle, about the 15, 15, 30, 60, 30, 15. I just want people to be right about that because I like symmetry and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, not a whole lot of predictions, not a whole lot to say, just because I really think that we're kind of drawing to a close here. We need to check in with Robin and Black Maria, so maybe that'll happen. But yeah, so that being said, I do have some kind of technical things to talk about here at the end of the video. But I will say, before I get into that, like the video if you liked it, and please comment down below and tell me what you thought about it, because I really liked the chapter. But that being said, check the description, because I have a new episode of my podcast out on Spotify. I'm so sorry for it taking so long to get the next episode out. It really, really just took me forever to record it, and I've been going through transitions in my life right now, so things are have been a little up in the air, but I really like it. It's I talk with my brother about Mortal Kombat, which is one of his very, very favorite video game series, and I experienced it for the first time, so link is in the description to check that out. Also, I am here to announce that on Saturday, this Saturday, July 3rd, I am going to be doing my first ever live stream reaction to the scans on the channel. And I will still be doing a review on top of it, but I'm going to start live streaming reactions to the scans because I want to try and start building up a community, and I've been reading the scans now every week, and so it gives me a chance to talk about the scans and then digest that, and then when the official comes out, digest it a little bit further, and then I will end up making my review on that. But so this Saturday, probably around noon, I will be doing a live stream on this YouTube channel for reacting to the scans. So if you want to see that, make sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so that you're notified when I go live. I think it's going to be really fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Also, I'm doing a huge bulk recording session today. So there is a lot of stuff that's going to be coming out pretty soon. I don't know how much of it I'm actually going to get through today, but I am, over the course of this week, I'm going to be doing a huge bulk recording session because I have a lot of stuff that I want to start putting out on the channel, and I want to get that backlogged. So, once again, if you want to see any of that, make sure you're subscribed. But, that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said, great chapter. And, yeah, like and subscribe. And until then, I will see you guys in chapter 1018.